I've spent the last 2 years studying with Susan Bradley and the Certified Financial Transitionist Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've learned just an incredible treasure trove of resources and tools for people going through transitions. And some of the work that she has done resulted in the 4 stages of transition.
Mm-hmm.
And they are anticipation, which is kind of self-explanatory,
Yeah.
ending, passage, and then finally, new normal. So, anticipation, of course, is characterized by that time when you're pretty sure something's coming,
Yeah.
but no one's clicked yet. No one's pulled the ripcord yet. But there's this sense that things are about to change. And it may even be that your spouse has already told you things are going to change. And maybe they've even moved out of the house, but maybe you're in this long period of separation where you still haven't established when the actual ending of your current relationship is going to be. So that still will keep you in anticipation.
That reminds me of C.
Yeah.
4 years of transition of anticipation.
Yeah, maybe someone thinking that maybe this still could work. Let's maybe have some separation from each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're still in it for sure, but yet there's this constant feeling that your normal world has been disrupted.
So foreboding.
Yeah.
Sense of foreboding.
Something else is coming, and it can be foreboding, Joe, but it can also be an optimism.
True.
Of something new, right? And then you get into the official ending stage where you've actually decided to terminate one aspect, one period of your life, and move to a new period of your life.
Yeah.
And obviously that happens during that divorce process and the negotiation of terms and all of that. And by the way, these stages are not isolated. They overlap.
Yeah.
And so there's some overlapping of each stage. Then once you finally get all of the settlement terms agreed to, you move into passage of, okay, great. Now you've got to move.
Yeah.
Often you've got to change jobs. You've got to start maybe managing your own finances for the first time. You've got all of these possibilities in front of you that you have to actually make these life important decisions about. And it can be a time that feels incredibly chaotic.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And I just want to reassure all of your listeners, from anticipation all the way through passage is a psychological period that we fondly refer to as divorce brain. And it is not unusual at all to feel like you're losing your mind.
Yeah.
To feel like you can't make decisions the way that you used to feel like you're constantly in this fog where nothing makes sense. It's real. And studies have shown that you actually lose 15 IQ points during that transition.
And would you say that's probably why it's good to arm yourself with
a team,
resources and a team just to help you along, because maybe you're not thinking 100% rationally or logically.
Thinking, as Nancy's describing that, it almost feels like someone could feel like they're really alone during that time.
Alone, or, we've talked about mistakes we've made because maybe we're rushing through the process because we just want to get through with it, whereas maybe if we were feeling 100% at that, we wouldn't have made those types of decisions or mistakes. So,
well, there could be so many moving pieces going on in a potential short period of time as well.
Yeah. There's so much going on.
And, in my experience, the only people that I have seen go through a full divorce process without that significant impact to their reasoning abilities are the people that have been living separately for 5 years or more. Because the reality is they already went through these transitions a long time ago.
Yeah.
They just never did any paperwork.
Yeah.
So they can come to the business side of it and still be pretty level-headed, but I
Yeah.
don't see that very often. And I've done hundreds of divorce transition cases.
So
Yeah.
what are
So
some things that people should think about when they're in this passage process?
Yeah. And it could be over, a Valentine's Day or some other sort of holiday.
Yeah.
So
Maybe they're
yeah,
going through that passage right now. It's like,
well, I think to recognize that throughout passage, you're going to find yourself in some measure of two different states, either a state of struggle or a state of flow. And when you start to experience the state of flow on a more regular basis, that's when you know you're getting really close to your new normal, which is the final stage. But that states of struggle, and one of the most important phases of this that I don't hear people talk about very often is the compromised identity. The loss of the identity of who you were in the world.
Yeah.
And I can remember feeling this so strongly. Everything I knew about myself had been flipped upside down, and I had no idea who I was in the world anymore.
Nancy, you kind of like talking about from like it's us, it's we, and then
We
it's
to me.
we to me.
Yeah.
We to me.
We to me.
And I was a wife and I was a mother. And now all of a sudden I find myself half of the week with no children in my house for
Yeah.
the first time in 15 years.
Well, that could
And
also be kind of refreshing.
I
Yeah.
think I
Not
actually
at
think I
first.
feel like
Not at first. Not
I
at
feel like
first, yeah.
parents need time to figure that out. So I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of parents mourn that 50%
For sure.
loss.
For sure. Yeah.
But then, yeah.
Maybe not during the passage
You
time.
you
then.
adjust to it. And
Yeah.
that's part of that passage, right? Is adjusting to all of these new things. But it can be characterized, that struggle state can feel hopeless.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that, some people go into passage feeling invincible. Maybe you just got a big divorce settlement and you haven't really managed money your life. So you haven't done the financial planning piece. And I've seen people going through this divorce passage period spending money like it's going out of style.
Like a
And
lottery
going
bill.
on big trips and buying fancy houses, and I'm going to get a rental property and let's get an RV. And so that invincibility is actually another state of struggle.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we know some people, or we've had clients like that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And so that's a time when that team is so important to help ground you in reality and help you with the clarity of those decisions, not being filtered through that lens of actual struggle. People can feel very numb and withdrawn, find it very difficult to even want to make any decisions because they're just kind of pulled into themselves. Very inconsistent behaviors. They can be wonderful one day and then be very unpredictable the next day.
Yeah.
And I think that's good to hear, Nancy, because I think people going through passage right now feel like maybe they're crazy or this is unique to them and they feel very alone. So I'm hoping that for listeners that are potentially going through passage right now, at least hearing this from you and from us, it's like, oh, okay, this is not out of character.
Yeah.
This is
Other people,
happening and it's okay. It's just part of the cycle.
Exactly. And as a financial transitionist, when clients are experiencing that, we go through a process called financial triage, where what are all of the things on your mind? What are all of the things that you might possibly be worried about? And how urgent are they? What needs to be dealt with immediately, soon, or later? And what's in your control and what's not in your control.
That's
so
a
that
good
you
one.
can narrow your focus,
Yeah.
focus to just one or two things at a time that you have to deal with.
Mhm.
And it is okay during this period of passage to not make important decisions and just wait and give yourself some space.
Yeah, I kind of see an overlap with maybe losing a significant other, like to death.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
where, you know, you as the outside advisor looking in, you can see all these things that need to be done. But from their side, there's only so much capacity that they can do, for one. And so you almost need to, like, you know, just slowly piecemeal some, like, what's the most critical thing to do.
Yeah, help
Because
them
otherwise it's
prioritize
overwhelming.
even.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just say, hey, let's just talk about this.
Like I was having
Yep.
a conversation with this recent widow, and she was kind of going through those same sort of things where it's like she wasn't ready to do all those steps there. And I think the same thing would be happening with some divorced people where they only can do certain parts right now.
That's exactly
They
right.
drag it out.
What you'll find really interesting is if I can take a client through this financial triage exercise,
Mm-hmm.
and they make the decision what's the most important thing to deal with, now they're going to actually deal with it. Whereas if I bring it to them and say, you know, this is really the most urgent, we need to focus on this, I may or may not get their participation in dealing with that. So the whole goal of the financial transitionist designation is helping clients gracefully move through these phases of transition in a way that they feel they're reclaiming their own control, their own autonomy, their own spirit, and their own sense of possibility for their future.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very empowering process, and frankly, one that has been sorely lacking in the world of financial services.
Yeah.
There's definitely a benefit for that self-realization, because it feels like then, whether you're leading them a little bit, I feel like they've achieved something themselves. Like
Yeah,
they've
letting them
identified it.
take ownership,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Over their decisions. But maybe we can help them by organizing the choices maybe
Yeah.
and presenting the choices in such a way where
Yeah.
they're like, oh, okay. I know
what I
what's
wanna do.
important here. Yeah.
Exactly. And so along these lines, what I'd like to offer to your listeners today, a transitions journal.
Okay.
And it's really a coaching exercise that if you know you're getting ready to go through one of these life transitions, or it's just happened to you and you found yourself here,
Yeah.
it's a wonderful exercise to take you through a process of getting yourself more mentally prepared and emotionally prepared for what you're about to go through. And so I would love to offer that to your listeners, for anybody that wants to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to provide that.
That would
Yeah,
be
that'd be
great.
lovely.
Or
Yeah.
if you can also reach out to us and just mention the Transitionist Journal, we could also send it to you.
Yeah.
So either if you contact any of us, what is that last stage, Nancy? The new
After
normal. The new
Yeah.
The
normal.
new normal. That's the great stage.
I
And
love the new normal.
new normal is where everybody wants to get to, right? And
Yeah.
that's when you feel you're most of the time in a state of flow, where you have clarity, you're hopeful, you're resilient. Things can happen, and you'll be like, oh, that stinks, but you know what? I know I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
You have consistent behaviors. You are refreshed, you're energized, and you're excited about your future.
Mm-hmm.
And it can take a while to get there. And you finally have a new identity that is intact and that you're confident in. And there's just a whole new sense of possibility for your new future.